Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's speed reading crash course. My name is Cynthia. Happy to see you in the audience today. A few handouts that we will use for today's session you can find at irisreading.com/handouts. Okay, we will reference a few documents. You'll see them on my screen. You don't have to pop this up in a separate tab in your browser if you don't want to, but if the text is a little blurry on my end or anything like that, you're more than welcome to just open that up in a separate tab. And once again, my name is Cynthia, and I am an instructor with Iris Reading. We are based out of Chicago. Iris Reading has been teaching these workshops, specifically the speed reading workshop, I believe, and I have to actually check. I think we're now, I keep saying over 100 cities, but I think we are over a little bit more than that, so I have to confirm, but for sure we have taught this in over 100 cities around the world. This is actually what we're known for here at Iris Reading, which is speed reading. We do offer other workshops as well. It's just this is our number one. So if you have maybe been thinking about reading or learning how to read a little bit faster, then we hope that you find today's workshop helpful. We also offer a memory techniques workshop. So if you're a student and you're struggling to memorize things and remember them or pull them from your memory maybe fast enough for the exam or maybe for a real life situation, if you're a nursing student and you're kind of trying to figure out how to practice what you have memorized in the clinical setting or in other fields as well, that can be a challenge. So we that's actually my favorite one to teach here. We offer note taking as well, effective note taking. So it's funny how most of us we learn that we have to take notes, but we don't necessarily learn how to take the best notes for you, right? Because we all think differently, we all reason differently, yet we all seem to learn only one way of taking notes. So in that note-taking workshop, we discuss the different versions of note-taking, some of which you might be aware of, maybe not, and more importantly, how to find one that's compatible with how you think. Okay, and we also offer a productivity and focus workshop, which is self-explanatory. Yeah, we have one for working professionals and one for students, and comprehension or comprehension strategies as well. That's the newest workshop that we launched this year, actually in March, and it's all about asking the right questions. Okay, so if you are struggling to maybe figure out what questions you should be asking, maybe you're learning something brand new, you have no idea how to go about it, you feel like you don't have the support from your teacher, then that's okay. We have found 6 questions that are questions that you can ask pretty much in any field or any subject you're looking to learn. They are generic questions, but they can lead and they will lead to deeper comprehension. So those are all the workshops that we offer here at Iris Reading. Also, if you like what we do, if you like the content for today's class, please check us out on social media. Obviously, you know we're on YouTube. We are on Instagram, on TikTok, as well as on Facebook. Okay, so our Instagram, we like to switch things up. We do a fact of the day or maybe 2 facts. On our TikTok, we go on little adventures around the community and we learn just random things, maybe about a holiday or about the city we're visiting. And in our Facebook group, it's actually reading specifically, it's called Book Lovers Assemble. And it is essentially all things related to reading. So if you're reading something new and you love it and you want to come and share it on this in this book club, you are more than welcome to do so. If you're reading a book and you hate it and you want the world to know about it, this is the book club as well for you. So please stop by. We'd love to hear what you're reading. That's actually the prompt of the day. We're asking all of our participants in that club to share what they're reading and what they think about what they're reading as well. So if you'd like to join that is a free group you can join on Facebook. Now, let's get into the very, very important subject of speed reading. Now, some people maybe have few misconceptions about speed reading. They feel like speed readers maybe skip words, or we because, you know, me too, we just claim to read faster. I've read a lot of funny reviews on the subject of speed reading, but we don't skip words actually. So if that's maybe something you've thought about in the past, we definitely don't, because we call it speed reading, not speed skipping, right? And it's essentially in our workshop, because there are many organizations that offer this, but we're very proud of our content because we don't want you to just read quickly. We want you to understand quickly as well. So a few things that we'll cover, we'll talk about how fast you currently read specifically, and we're also going to talk about improving your focus while reading. Now, another point that we'll discuss is some old reading habits that let me minimize my screen. Some old reading habits that we maybe have that we should get rid of, because these old reading habits, these things that we learned when we're in kindergarten, they actually slow us down. Okay, they were good in the moment, but as time has gone by, we kind of have to, we've obviously gotten faster at reading, we've gotten faster at thinking, so it's like training wheels, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But our focus here at Iris Reading, we do have 3 areas of focus. First being speed. As we mentioned, we want everybody who takes our workshop to read faster, okay? And you may be thinking, well, I don't know how you could read fast and comprehend equally as fast. Well, give us a shot, okay? Our second area of focus is comprehension, because this is very important. You cannot read quickly without understanding. That, we don't call that reading, okay? So we want to make sure that if you are maybe thinking about how this just sounds funny, we are equally invested when it comes to comprehending as well as reading, right? It's very important for us. So these 2 we'll talk about a little bit today, and then our third area of focus is retention. We want everybody who takes our workshops to have a better plan for memorizing things afterwards, specifically that memory workshop. As we mentioned, we're not going to talk about that today, but you are more than welcome to check out our website, irisreading.com, for that memory workshop. We have, I believe we have a mastery version as well. So definitely check that out. So what happens? Most of us, we leave kindergarten reading something like this. So we've got the little green ball that's jumping across the screen. Like that, right? And that's okay. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but here's the thing. And we talked about this earlier. We learn how to read one time, and then we never really talk about learning how to read again. Okay, and so that's a bit of a problem, because some of us 25, 35, 45-year-olds, right, we've been reading all this time, and we never evaluate if our reading strategies or our reading skills, if they're improving or not. And one of the things that do slow us down are these old reading habits. And I always like to use this example of riding a bicycle. How most of us start out riding a bicycle with training wheels, but in order for us to get faster and to ride faster, we have to at some point get rid of those training wheels, right? There's only so much you can do with the training wheels. So the same thing with reading. We learn with what we call training wheels, or maybe crutches. There were things that helped us as we were learning the alphabet and as we were learning how to put those sounds together to form words. But most of us have improved significantly from the time we first learned how to read, which means we don't have to use those old reading habits anymore. Okay, and so today we're going to actually talk about 3 old reading habits, 3 things that you may be doing right now that may be slowing you down. Okay, and if you identify with any of them, that's okay. Because we are going to show you how to maybe push them aside or leave them behind so that they don't affect you as you are reading. Okay, so the first old reading habit we want to talk about is fixation. And fixation is essentially just fixating on one word at a time as you're reading. So an analysis of contract formation is as follows. Okay. Now you might be thinking, well, that's exactly how I read. Right. That's actually how we all learned how to read. But we always like to share how we are able to pick up groups of words. It's just something that maybe isn't as comfortable and as prevalent when you think about reading. But think about this. If you are maybe traveling, you're on a road trip, and you're going to New York City, and you're driving on the expressway and you see all the signs, they're coming up ahead, right? All the exits, and then you finally see the exit that's for you, which is New York City. Now, do you have the luxury of slowing down your car and making sure you fixate on every single word on the sign before you decide if you're getting off that expressway or not? No, right? Especially if you're in the boundaries of New York. The drivers in New York and in Chicago, they don't have the patience or the time for you to figure out what you're going to do on the expressway, right? They need you to go, move it or lose it. So we can read that sign pretty fast. In fact, most of us are able to pick up that entire sign in less than 2 seconds. And the fun fact is that this is actually why billboards have maybe 5 or 6 words at the most, because you are able to pick up groups of words, especially when you're driving, right, on the highway and the normal street. So it is something that we can do. It's just something that most of us probably don't think about doing. Okay, so let's practice this. Now, obviously, in the beginning, it isn't going to be very comfortable to pick up 2 words at a time, and then 3, and then slowly progress to more. But this is going to help you read faster. Okay, so let's start out with 2 words at a time. Give it a go. Give it a couple of maybe days of practice, a couple of weeks of practicing before you slowly augment the number of words that you are reading, okay, at a time. But we definitely cannot only just read 1 word at a time. That's just not going to cut it for us, okay? Especially if we would like to be speed readers, it's just not going to work. So, old reading habit number 1 is fixation. Old reading habit number 2 is regression. Okay, and this is a funny one because we might be confusing something that we learned early on with this regression. So if we think back to the time when we first started reading passages and answering questions on the passage, maybe your teacher would give you like a little reading comprehension assignment, right? You'd read it, you'd answer the questions. Some of us remember this as classwork, right? So we think about what would happen if we were reading something and we didn't understand it. What would happen in class? Our teacher would generally say, if we asked, right, for help, he or she would say, well, just go back and read it again, right? And so we take that principle of going back and rereading and we apply it to areas we don't need to. One of them being when we read one sentence and it doesn't make sense, we go back and we read it again and again and again and again, and we stay in this like endless cycle of reading, and then we just get bored and end up on TikTok, right? So we don't want to do that. Think about this. Think about maybe when you are watching something on Netflix or on Hulu, and you watch the opening scene to a brand new show. Someone is running away from what looks like maybe bad guys, but you're not sure, and so you don't have the full context. You don't understand what's happening. Do you pause the movie and rewind it and rewatch it so that you can figure out why this is happening? Or do you keep watching because you know at a certain point you're going to learn why this person is running, right? That style that many producers use, many authors use it as well. So you might not understand this one sentence because you haven't made it through the rest of the sentences in the paragraph. right? Something else that we might forget is the structure of how a paragraph is written. So the first sentence is usually the main idea, followed by supporting statements and supporting facts. So everything works together in a paragraph. And if we only get, it's like just pulling out a piece of lettuce from your sandwich. Are you going to understand that what you have in front of you is a sandwich? Not by just biting the lettuce, right? You got to eat the whole sandwich. You got to taste everything, the bread, the ham, the cheese. It all makes sense together, not just with one piece. So we want to make sure that we're not reading the same sentence over and over. We understand the structure of how a paragraph is written. So if you don't get that one sentence, please finish the paragraph before you then decide to go back and reread. But I do understand how most of us can just it's just like an automatic thing where you just start reading it over and over and over and you get annoyed because it doesn't make sense, and you try reading it in different tones and it doesn't make sense. But again, that's just one sentence in a paragraph of maybe 5 or 6 sentences. So try to get through the whole paragraph before you then decide if this is something you need to read, or I'm sorry, try to get through the whole paragraph before you decide if this is something you need to read again, or you just have to finish reading the paragraph. Okay. And then obviously if you get through the entire paragraph and it doesn't make sense, well then absolutely go back and reread. But again, with one sentence, don't give one sentence so much power. Okay. Now our third old reading habit is subvocalization. Okay. So subvocalization is pretty much the little voice inside of your head that is narrating everything as you are reading. Okay, you might hear your voice as you're reading, and this isn't to be confused with the conscience voice that you have as well, right? It's not the voice. What is it that Jimmy Cricket says? He says, always let your conscience be your guide, from Pinocchio. Yes, this is true, but we're not talking about that voice. We're talking about a different voice, okay? And maybe you hear, like we said, your voice, or maybe you hear like a family member's voice. Maybe you hear Morgan Freeman's voice. He's got a tremendous voice and he's an awesome narrator in Hollywood. Or maybe you hear, what's this other guy from Animal Planet or the Discovery Channel? David Attenborough. He's got a great voice as well. The point is you hear somebody's voice, right, as you are reading. So the issue here with this is that when you hear the voice inside of your head, and you're actually allowing it to make waves in your brain, you're only going as fast as you can talk. Okay, and that would be a very, very good thing if the average talking speed was maybe faster than the average reading speed, but it isn't. The average talking speed and the average reading speed are the exact same thing. So we got a problem, right? Average reading speed 150 words to 250 words per minute. So it's all the same. So what do we do then, right? Because if you hear the voice inside of your head, maybe you're the type of person that also forms the shapes of the words with your mouth. Right, so maybe you're like, well, I don't necessarily hear the voice, but I am the type of person that as I'm reading, I'll go. So I'm not reading out loud, but I am forming the shapes of the word with my mouth. It's like I'm reading silently. Same thing. That's another version of subvocalization. Okay, so we don't want that to slow us down. Think about it as maybe running to catch an airplane or a flight, and you have all these extra bags and you're running behind and it took forever to get through security and you literally have 5 minutes to make it to your gate or you're going to lose the airplane. Is it easier to run with maybe one bag at most, just run for your life, or is it easier to run with 7 different duffel bags all attached to you? You're not going to make it, right? You got to drop the bags and run. Same thing with this subvocalization. If we want to read faster, we can't have all that extra baggage hanging off of us, okay? So we can't allow that voice to dominate us and slow us down. Now, a few things that can help us to not necessarily focus in on that voice and read faster. One of them is just push yourself to read maybe 20% faster than you're used to reading. This will not allow the voice inside of your head to catch up with you. Okay, it's almost going to be like, wait, what's happening, right? Something else that can help you as well is maybe listening to some background sound or some background music, just something that can help drown out the sound that you hear in your head, that voice. So what I'll do is I'll put on some classical music, not something that's going to make me want to dance, but something that is going to, again, just kind of soothe me and also drown out the sound, the voice inside of my head. Okay, so those are a few suggestions. I know a lot of students will sit at like a Starbucks, or they'll sit somewhere where, you know, it's a little noisy, so the voices or the things that are around you will drown out that voice inside of your head. So again, these were 3 old reading habits that will typically slow us down, and we want to make sure that if you are I don't want to say suffering from these things, because that sounds pretty morbid, but if you are participating in any of these old reading habits, then we happily encourage you to try to make your way, try to get out of that. Okay, try to get out of that relationship with these old reading habits, because again, we are looking to read faster, and this is actually the first step to reading faster. Okay, now I know, let's see right here, I keep having an issue with my screen. If you are maybe also struggling, let's talk about one more thing real quick. If you're also struggling to maybe pay attention while you're reading, then we have a solution for you, a cost-effective one as well. It is using your hand or pen as a guide. So again, if you're having a hard time concentrating while reading, we are living in an era with many distractions, unfortunately. And I wonder what happened with the whole TikTok ban, and how they're saying that this is pretty much ruining kids, what's it called, like they're being able to pay attention in school because it's so addicting. I mean, if it's addicting for an adult, I can only imagine for a child that hasn't really, you know, it doesn't have a developed brain all the way, what that can do to you when you are trying to train a young one to pay attention. So it can be very hard to you know, to kind of break free from TikTok, and actually all sorts of social media can become addicting. So the funny thing too is that we discussed in our memory workshop how we get so used to being hyperstimulated with the cell phones and laptops and the iPads that sometimes we feel like we're paying attention, but we actually aren't. And the funny thing also is that when you think you're paying attention and then you try to remember what you were quote unquote paying attention to, it turns out most times you can't remember, and that gets accredited to just having bad memory when it's actually not the case at all. It's just, again, we're so used to being, again, like on edge almost with cell phones and the social media and constantly needing to look at a screen that your brain can't always tell if it is paying attention or not. And so that's just something to keep in mind as well. We want to be mindful of our social media, you know, our intake, how much we're actually spending. And that's actually a cool feature on the, I know my iPhone will like let me know on a daily basis how much I used, how much social media I watched, or how much time I spent on the internet, and more importantly, if my usage is going up or down, so that again I can just keep track of those healthy habits. But when we're talking about concentrating while reading, we want you to use your hand or pen as a guide. Okay, and this is important because our eyes are actually attracted to movement. And so if something was to fly in right now, if you can see my little box with my face in it, if something were to fly in right now, you guys would probably stop paying attention to the presentation and pay attention to what is happening around me, right? Because again, that's just something normal. It happens, and don't look at it as a bad thing. We want to use that to our advantage. And by forcing a hand, a pen, your finger as a guide, you are forcing your eyeballs to look down at the material and not to what is happening around you. Okay, so a simple suggestion, cost effective as well, and it doesn't have to be your finger or a pen. I use a bobby pin, right? I know some people use like a thumbtack, or some people use like a little token, whatever they have in their hands. That works for them. So again, if you are struggling to pay attention, this is a great way to, you know, try to, again, just push yourself to pay a little more attention. So we are actually going to wrap up today's presentation. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Our social media is below, irisreading.com. You can also send me an email, cynthia@irisreading.com. And I look forward to seeing you all in a future session. Thank you for stopping by.